Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The story you are about to hear is based on real events. Some details may be disturbing for sensitive viewers. Tonight's case is one of the darkest crime stories in American history. A story involving kidnapping, torture, murder, and a nightmare that lasted nearly 2 full days. This is not fiction. These were real people, real families, real lives destroyed forever. And even today, years later, this case still leaves investigators and viewers shaken. So dim the lights, put your headphones on, and prepare yourself for one of the most horrifying true crime cases ever recorded. A normal Saturday night. January 6, 2007. Knoxville, Tennessee. It was a cold Saturday evening. The kind of night where most people were relaxing with friends, watching movies, or enjoying the weekend. For 21-year-old Channon Christian and 23-year-old Christopher Newsom, it was supposed to be just another normal night. They had simple plans. Dinner, movie, a small gathering with friends. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous. Friends later said the couple looked happy, relaxed, excited for the future. And why wouldn't they be? Both of them had their entire lives ahead of them. Channon was a college student at the University of Tennessee. She studied sociology and dreamed of helping struggling communities. She was known for her kindness and positive personality. People naturally gravitated toward her. She had the kind of smile that made others feel comfortable instantly. Christopher Newsom was hardworking and dependable. A talented carpenter, baseball lover, a young man who cared deeply about family and friends. The two balanced each other perfectly. That evening, Chris arrived at a friend's apartment complex to pick Channon up. Security cameras later captured them hugging in the parking lot. Completely ordinary moment. A moment nobody would have remembered if it hadn't become the final peaceful moment of their lives. Because hidden somewhere nearby, people were watching them. Predators. Dangerous criminals searching for victims. And within minutes, everything changed. According to investigators, several criminals had been driving around Knoxville that night looking for someone to rob. But robbery alone wasn't enough. The group was violent, experienced, and completely without empathy. When they spotted Channon and Chris in the parking lot, they made their decision immediately. Witnesses later described how quickly everything happened. Weapons were drawn. The couple was threatened. Hands were tied. And both victims were forced into a vehicle. Imagine the fear in that moment. 1 second you're talking about weekend plans. The next second, strangers are pointing guns at your face. No warning. No chance to escape. The kidnappers drove the couple to a rental house on Chipman Street. A house that would later become infamous across the country. From the outside, the home looked normal. Nothing about it seemed unusual. But inside, investigators would later uncover scenes of unimaginable horror. The suspects connected to the house had long criminal histories. Violence, robbery, drug activity, aggressive behavior. Neighbors would later say the house had always felt dangerous. People constantly coming and going. Arguments, suspicious activity late at night. But nobody could have imagined what was about to happen inside. Investigators believe the victims were separated shortly after arriving. Christopher Newsom was restrained. His hands were tied behind his back. A covering was placed over his head. Court testimony later revealed evidence of severe assault and torture. Meanwhile, Channon Christian remained trapped inside the house. Terrified. Completely helpless. Hours passed. At some point during the night, investigators said Chris was forced out of the house. Barefoot. Wearing very little clothing despite freezing temperatures. He was marched through the darkness toward nearby railroad tracks. Imagine how terrifying those final moments must have felt. Cold air. Frozen ground. No idea if survival was even possible. Then the gunshots came. Christopher Newsom was killed near the tracks. His body was later burned in an attempt to destroy evidence. But inside the house, Channon's nightmare continued. According to prosecutors, She endured hours of physical abuse and torture. Medical testimony described injuries so disturbing that courtroom observers reportedly struggled to look at the evidence. Even experienced investigators later admitted this case haunted them. One detail from the investigation would stay with people forever. At one point, Channon reportedly begged for her life. She didn't want to die. But no mercy came. Eventually, investigators believe the suspects attempted to destroy evidence using chemicals and cleaning products. Then, in one final act of cruelty, Channon was left trapped inside a garbage container where she ultimately died. The brutality of the crime shocked even seasoned homicide detectives. This wasn't random violence. It was calculated evil. Families began to panic. While the horror unfolded inside the house, both families had no idea what was happening. By Sunday morning, loved ones became worried. Phone calls weren't being answered. Text messages went ignored. And that wasn't normal. Friends tried reaching both victims repeatedly. Nothing. As the hours passed, concern turned into panic. Family members contacted police and reported the couple missing. But initially, authorities believed the pair may have simply gone away for the weekend. For the families, the waiting was unbearable. Every minute felt endless. Every unanswered call created more fear. Eventually, friends and relatives began searching themselves, driving around neighborhoods, checking parking lots, posting flyers, calling everyone they knew. Then came the first major breakthrough. Channon's SUV was discovered abandoned near Chipman Street. And immediately, something felt wrong. The vehicle showed signs that someone else had been using it. The seats had been adjusted. Mud covered parts of the interior. Personal belongings were missing. Investigators also discovered evidence inside the vehicle that pointed toward possible suspects. That discovery would soon lead police directly to the house on Chipman Street. The discovery. When investigators finally entered the rental house, they encountered a crime scene unlike anything they had seen before. Evidence was scattered throughout the property. Personal items belonging to the victims. Signs of violence. DNA evidence. And then investigators made the discovery that would forever haunt the case. Inside the home, they found Channon Christian. The scene was horrifying. Even veteran officers reportedly struggled emotionally afterward. The house immediately became the center of a massive homicide investigation. Forensic teams worked around the clock, collecting fingerprints, processing DNA, photographing evidence. Every room inside the house seemed connected to the crimes. The investigation quickly expanded into one of the largest criminal cases Tennessee had ever seen. Soon, authorities identified multiple suspects connected to the kidnapping and murders. But there was one problem. The suspects had already disappeared. As news of the murder spread across Knoxville, fear and anger exploded throughout the community. Police launched a massive manhunt. The FBI became involved. State investigators joined the search. Photos of the suspects appeared across television broadcasts and newspapers. Tips flooded in. Meanwhile, the suspects reportedly monitored media coverage while trying to avoid capture. But investigators were closing in. One by one, arrests began. Some suspects were located outside Tennessee. Others were found hiding in abandoned properties. During arrests, investigators recovered personal belongings connected to the victims, weapons, clothing, additional evidence. The case against the suspects quickly became overwhelming. DNA evidence, fingerprint matches, ballistics, witness testimony. Everything pointed toward the same horrifying conclusion. This had been a coordinated kidnapping and murder carried out by multiple people. And now, the entire country wanted justice. The trials. The courtroom proceedings became extremely emotional. Families sat through painful testimony describing the final hours of Channon and Chris. Graphic evidence was shown. Medical examiners described injuries. Investigators explained the crime scenes in detail. At times, Even people inside the courtroom reportedly became overwhelmed. The trials stretched on for years. Some defendants received life sentences. Others faced the harshest punishments allowed under the law. But legal complications later caused even more heartbreak for the families. One of the judges connected to the original trials became involved in a major scandal involving misconduct and drug abuse. As a result, some convictions faced challenges and retrials. For the families, it felt like reliving the nightmare over and over again. Years passed. Appeals continued. New hearings were scheduled. But despite every delay, the families refused to give up. They attended hearing after hearing. They continued fighting for justice. And eventually, every person involved in the crimes was convicted. For many people in Knoxville, the final convictions brought relief. But closure, that never truly came. Because no sentence could ever bring Channon and Chris back. A city forever changed. The murders left permanent scars on Knoxville. People who lived there at the time still remember the fear, the sadness, the shock. Parents became more protective. Students became more cautious. And the entire community struggled to understand how something so evil could happen. The house on Chipman Street was eventually demolished. But even after it disappeared, the memory of what happened there remained. Over time, foundations and memorials were created in honor of Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom. Scholarships helped students continue their education. Community events raised awareness and support. Their families worked hard to ensure the victims would be remembered for who they truly were. Not just victims, but people. Young people.